I'm so excited to talk about this. First of all, I'll be talking about work that I started before I realized that I was an ecosystem builder. So when I went to my first Eship summit in 2018 and found out that there was a label for what I was doing, it was great, felt great. So I'm going to talk about an entrepreneurial ecosystem in a box using the community college. And I'm going to be talking more about a Launch My City model that I actually helped develop several years ago. Before we get started, now this may be old hat for those of you who are here at Eship, but I just wanted to cover it as a safety precaution because we throw words around sometimes and we're meaning different things. And I just wanted to define what an entrepreneurial ecosystem does, the goals of it. We call these the 7 pillar goals. So I'm going to just go over them real fast. Won't belabor the point on either of them. That's an inclusive feel, making sure you've got real diversity, not just in the leaders, but in the volunteers and the people served. That there's a culture of collaboration that's based on trust, that you are working toward the same outcomes and have a similar compatible view of the future, that you're coordinating and collaborating across networks, that you're measuring things that's easy to measure and make sense, and that the stakeholders, you got universal support and the stakeholders understand and support what the ecosystem building is and what the ecosystem builders are doing. The final one that I won't be talking about very much, sustainable work, is more about getting this profession recognized as something that's valuable, that an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder will at some point in the future be as valuable as an economic developer is now in the traditional definition of things. So when I think of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, I expect to see at least 6 of those things in there. If it doesn't have all 6 of them, in my opinion, it's an entrepreneurial ecosystem in process, which is fine. We're always in process towards something. But what excited me when I went to Eship in 2018 was I looked at these things and I said, I'm doing like almost all of those. So it was great. And I became a firm believer in ecosystem building at that time. So, you know, every good discussion starts with a good story. So once upon a time, in a very prosperous town, there was a community that was mere blocks from the cool entrepreneurial hub, but they were being totally ignored. This is what we found in 2016 when a member of a Rotary Club brought an idea to me to start this program. And it was so consistent with my mission at the college that I couldn't resist getting involved with both hands and both feet. My mission at Wake Tech is to look across the entrepreneurial ecosystem in our county, find where the holes are, and plug them. So when I looked at this project, I said, this is perfect. This is what I've been looking for. This is what I can sink my teeth in. And therefore, the journey began. We started planning for this project in August of 2016. It took us 6 months to introduce our first cohort, that is putting all the processes in place and getting all the partners together. We eventually had 8 collaborating partners to make this work. So, you know, collaboration is the new capital. Sometimes collaboration is worth more than actual capital. And it took us that long to get everything together and get all the support that we needed. We kicked off the program with a lot of fanfare in January of 2017, and we graduated our first cohort that March. And after we graduated the first cohort, we realized that we had something that could really scale. Because originally our goal was just to plug that hole in that neglected community. It was the traditional, historically African-American community in Raleigh, which is, really is the capital of the state, and it's the largest town in the county. And we thought it was just awful that this community was being ignored. So originally we were just going to solve that problem. But when we looked at what we had created, we realized it could scale, and we wanted to share it with everybody. So we went back to Rotary International and said, can we put a website on your server just to tell everybody what we're doing? And they allowed us to create launchmycity.org. so that we could store everything, all the documents we created, the timelines, all the templates, so that anybody could do this. So that's when it started actually traveling. The current status in our county is we have 5 cohorts this fall. When we finish, we will have had 24. By the end of this year, we'll have 397 graduates. We'll be about the size of a small chamber of commerce. We have 7 of our 12 towns actively involved and hosting teams. Now, it's gone outside of our area. We have helped people start 2 launch programs in a neighboring county, 2 launch programs in other parts of North Carolina. It looks like we got an email earlier today. We got another county that wants some help. But we've also helped people in Denver, in Lenawee County, Michigan, in Richmond, and in Canada. Now, I personally didn't do all that. My partner, Matthew Kane, helps with a lot of that. And because I have to get permission to travel outside the county, a lot of my help is done by phone. But this is a model that works and that really can travel. And I just wanted to show you this chart. I call this my one-sheeter, because when I talk about this program, I know it's busy, but I'm not going for any awards on, PowerPoint design, so it's okay. But when I'm asked to talk about this, I want to have something very concise to show people. But this is how it shakes out. You see a picture of our county there. You see with the red dots which towns are active right now. In Raleigh, which is huge, it's the big yellow spot. We'd love to have 3 more programs. But what has really made this program spread is that it is an ecosystem. It's not a flash in the pan program that goes away. And what gives it its legs are the town teams, the town boards that have to make it work. And you'll see there all of the jobs that have to be done by volunteers and by organizations to make this work. Wake Tech, as a community college, is the official training partner for all 7 of these programs. We are also, because we are the organization with the countywide footprint, we're also the facilitating organization. So any town that wants to start a program in my county, then it's my job to go out and help them as their consultant. We are also the convening organization. So follow-on training, annual reunions, we do all that as well. But other people inside the different towns have to do all those other jobs. There's a program manager in all 7 towns, and in all 7 towns, that program manager is a member of the Rotary Club. The town, the mayor, the economic development department, they are all involved in all towns. We have an outreach partner in every town, usually the Chamber of Commerce. There's a volunteer who handles communications like the Facebook page and the emails. There's somebody who coordinates the mentoring component. There's somebody who organizes the food. At least when we would meet face to face, we provided dinner before every class session. There was a venue sponsor who gave us space for free. And there was somebody who coordinated big events like the graduation. That's supposed to be a really special experience after people have spent, 10 weeks and 30 hours in class and up to 80 hours of homework. We want to celebrate them. So it's those teams that really make this an ecosystem and make this program work. What's involved in the program is the 4 components that entrepreneurs need most to succeed. Business and startup training. We use Kaufman's Fast Track curriculum for that. It's taught by seasoned entrepreneurs and business professionals so they can bring their stories from the street and their perspective of real life experience to the curriculum. Mentoring, each person is assigned a mentor for 6 months that is handpicked for them. Networking, I should say community there, because the reason we spend a lot of money on food is because we're expecting the people to bond and to become a supportive community for each other after the class is over. And we help them find a little money if they need it. Excuse me. You'll see there that we have in our cohort about 70% of the people the participants are female, about 60% minority, which is a great number because In some of our towns, minority population is 5 to 7%. So I just wanted to show you what we've been able to accomplish. So what is the Launch My City model? I call it a community-based economic development model that builds an entrepreneurial ecosystem. And it was inspired by, we can't take credit for just dreaming this up in our heads. We saw something that had been developed by our Rotary Club in Atlanta and Detroit that was designed to serve low-resourced entrepreneurs. We took that, we enhanced it, we made some changes, and that's what we now call Launch My City. Now, when you look at the numbers, it's easy to think that's very expensive. How do you do that? But we treat this like a potluck dinner. You know, when you have a potluck dinner, people come, they bring their favorite dish. Everybody has a fabulous meal. Nobody spends all day in the kitchen. Nobody spends a fortune because it's the collaboration that makes it work. So, and that's the way we treat this program, like a potluck dinner. And I'll show you a sample budget in a minute. But that potluck approach has kept everybody engaged, and also it's what has allowed us to spread this program like it has spread, because it doesn't have a big financial burden. I know this is a bit of an eye chart, but the point of this is everybody's bringing something to the table. If you don't pay anybody, if you don't pay salaries to the volunteers, it's about $11,500 to do a cohort. But the way we've done it, the college pays for the training. We pay a facilitator. Donations and sponsorships from local businesses pay for the food. And they can decide how good they want to eat, depending upon who's willing to step up. We actually had people, we had churches originally volunteering to feed our people. I don't know, I have not coughed all day, but I hear I'm talking to you guys and I'm coughing. We had small business owners sponsoring meals. And so that meant that we didn't have to really pay anything. We got a Rotary grant for printing supplies. We got a Rotary grant for the website and all of that. The venue sponsors, they gave us their space for free. If we'd had to pay for it, it might have costed as much as $2,200 per cohort. We got donations and sponsorships for things like graduation gifts. So that potluck approach is really what allowed us to do this and to keep doing this. So why include the community college in this? In every place where we have helped a community develop a program and a successful program that sustains, it is anchored with two organizations, the community college and the Rotary Club. The community college is a great partner for this because it already exists to provide the four things that entrepreneurs need. It already provides training. In North Carolina, and I think in a lot of other states as well, all of our community colleges have a small business center that provides free counseling. So even if you don't recruit volunteer counselors or mentors, that's a lot of work, I must admit. If you don't want to do that, you still have a resource for the mentoring. And the community college is already deeply connected to the community. So it already provides some networking opportunities. Their mission is community and workforce development. And we do realize now that entrepreneurship is a form of workforce development. If you start a venture and you're a solopreneur, you have created one job. And the community college's broad scope, by working with traditional students going for a degree, non-traditional students who want that certification or just want to up their skills, adult learners, adulty learners, that's a new word, by the way, adult learners and businesses. Most community colleges also go into businesses and provide training for their employees. Gives you a rich group of people to pick from and a lot of resources that you can use, and also the credibility with the community to help a program like this really get off the ground. The other thing that we found with Wake Tech is that the college is already connected to a lot of the partners you need. We have deep connections with our county government, with government in all of the towns, with state government. We are a member of every single chamber of commerce, all 12 of them. We have business leaders on our various boards and advisory councils at the college. And we also work with all of the four-year institutions in our area, all 5 of them. So this is what makes the community college a great choice. So when I looked at what we had done, and I started understanding the pillars of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, I said wanted to map that back to the Launch My City model. So is it an inclusive field? Yes, because we focused on low-resourced entrepreneurs. We have volunteers from town teams that look like the towns that they live in. Our cohorts are 70% female, 67% minority. We work with a lot of organizations, so we have a collaborative culture already. We're not worried about who gets credit. We are all focused on supporting Main Street businesses, so we all have a shared vision. And for Connected Networks, just see number 2. I think I counted one time, we have about 67 collaborators in the launch program in our county. And practical metrics and methods, well, I will tell you, we've got some work to do there because, measuring takes a lot of effort, and we are building a team so that we can go back and take those measurements. Right now, what we're measuring is retention of students. We're at about a 7% dropout rate. We're measuring how many people start a business. What we'd like to measure is job creation, and we'd like to measure revenue. Takes a little bit more work. Do we have universal support? Yes, we do. The towns, the Rotary clubs, county government, the community college, and local businesses all support this project financially. So I said, okay, we've got an entrepreneurial ecosystem here. So that's how we did it, or why we did it. I will tell you that when the program started growing in our county, and it also started growing outside of our county, we needed to brand what we're doing inside Wake County. So that's why we put the Launch Wake County umbrella. I'll show that to you. We put the Launch Wake County umbrella over what we're doing, because Launch My City is like any other recipe you get from somebody else. You can take it and you can, as the people in the country say, you can take that recipe and you can put your foot in it. That means you make it your own. You can change it a bit. And as people were changing the recipe for Launch My City in their towns, we needed to put one single brand around what we're doing so that we could maintain consistency. So right now, all of our programs are consistent but not identical because our towns are so very different. For instance, one of the things that we do to make sure we're hitting the people that need the most help is we've set some income preferences, household income preferences for each town. And in Raleigh, our household income preference was $60,000. But in some of our towns, less than 25% of the people in the town have an income of household income of less than $60,000. So we couldn't use that criteria. We had to use a higher number in those towns to get the people in those towns that would be considered low resourced. So that's why I say the programs are consistent, but not identical. We let each town put their own twist on it. What we are being consistent with, though, is that people apply to the program. They're all interviewed, so we can learn those things that you can't pick up from a piece of paper from them, and they're handpicked to be in the cohort. We do a minimum of 10, maximum of 20. This fall, we were worried. Some people were saying, well, maybe we should skip this fall because of the pandemic. And we were surprised to hear that in every town, they got more applications than ever before, because since we're doing everything virtually, we've removed the barriers of time and distance. So people who thought, well, I'll never get settled by 6 o'clock to be in this class, now don't have to drive any place, so they can all be in the class. I think altogether we got over well over 200 applications for the 5 towns that we have going this year. We did something new. We started accepting nonprofits. We had not done that in the past because we were focused on for-profit businesses. But when you look at what's happening in our country right now and the role that nonprofits are filling with some people who are in dire need, we thought we needed to make that exception this fall. So that's what we did and why. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Excellent, Katie. Thanks so much. And I've got heaps of questions myself. I know they've been coming in pretty fast in the chat, so we'll get to some of the questions on the chat. Maybe starting off with Shauna, who's saying, do you commit to funding access to capital for founders to participate? So how does, because you mentioned the access to funding, how exactly does that work? And are you funding the founders when they go through?
We are not, and so it's a little bit different in each town. When we first started, we had a kitty of about $45,000 for a fixed rate 5% loan. Maximum loan amount was $2,500. So they were micro loans. Nobody applied for a loan. Everybody came into the program saying, "I'm here so that I can get that cheap money." But at the end, nobody wanted it. And it's because during the curriculum, we taught them that you only take money when you absolutely need it. And when you get money, you're going to have to pay it back. So it's not a gift. And sometimes going for a loan means that you have not been creative enough to figure out how to do it. Sometimes we throw money at it when we don't have to. So we ended up having to move that money. Now, one of our towns, Cary, we're working with a community partner there, who has a grant fund. All of their graduates can apply, each cohort can apply for some limited amount of grant funds. This is money they don't have to pay back. What we've done with the access to capital is establish a relationship with Kiva, which is a crowd-funded lending platform. And also we have great relationships with the local community development financial institutions. So if you don't know what a CDFI is, it's like a nonprofit bank. Doesn't have deposits or savings. Its only purpose is to make loans to people that don't meet the bank's underwriting criteria. And so what we do is we help our people find those opportunities. And if they need a little help getting their application together, we'll help them with that too.
Yeah, thanks for that. And absolutely right. We often do hear that that honeypot method of trying to attract people in with dollars doesn't actually get the outcomes from an entrepreneur perspective. And those are really good, that's some good wisdom that you've gotten from that. I want to touch base, and I did comment on the curation process that you had and the value of that. And I want to go back to one of Alex's questions. Would love to hear your tips on recruiting and retaining volunteers, because we're not just talking about the participants, but the actual volunteers themselves that help on the ground. Any tips on that?
Yeah. That has been amazing for us. I think one of the keys is that the town boards are people who actually live in the towns. So they feel passionate about their community and passionate about small business. And most of them are small business owners or members of town government or the chamber. That's helped a lot because they can see the people right there in their community that come out of the class and then go open a business. And they can go then, support that business and do business with them. We have a great story out of Holly Springs. Our first cohort there was a couple who had always dreamed of having a little gift shop that supported local artisans. And they graduated in November. In December, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. But her class, and they wanted to open, they had the building already, they were getting it set, they were supposed to open in February. Well, her classmates, the people that were in class with her and graduated with her, rallied around her husband. They opened in February. And some of those people are still volunteering to help. They have a little coffee shop in there now. And they're still going strong. They've become a gathering place in the community. And that's what we're trying to build. And I think that's what keeps the volunteers going, because of that tight community connection. That's also why this is not a Wake Tech owned program. We are a facilitator, because if we owned it, then it would be us, and it would be our personality. It would not be each town's personality.
Yeah, and that's really coming through, Katie, and what you're saying as far as your role in facilitating the building of the ecosystem. Like, even in the questions people are asking are like, how are you going from building up those particular aspects? We talked about finance, and we got questions around volunteers. And I want to touch base on a few others that are coming through around mentors, because quite often the value and the power of these programs is really often the mentors that are there. So how do you go about your wisdom on getting good mentors who are real and committed? How do we identify those? How do we retain those? How do we keep them engaged?
I think the mentoring piece has been one of our most challenging, because in the first, I would say 2 years, we must have changed what we did 4 times. Well, the first thing we had to do during the planning process was define what a mentor is. I don't know about you, but I've been involved in a lot of failed mentoring projects in my time. And we thought that we really needed to clearly define what we were expecting from mentors, because we use coach, counselor, consultant, and mentor interchangeably, and they're not the same. So we define a mentor as somebody who has walked the path that you're going to walk, who can take you by the hand and walk with you and share the benefit of their experience in that journey. You know, where are the potholes? Where were the trees across the path? Where a coach is rah, 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 they don't have to know anything about your business. Rah, rah, you can do it. A counselor is like letting you go through your own business therapy, guiding you through that process. And a consultant, well, you're paying them for what they know, so they can be the boss and tell you what to do. But a mentor is to listen 80%, talk 20%. And when we first started out, we were interviewing mentors to make sure they had the right temperament, and also so that we can understand their business skills, so that we could match them to the people who needed what they had. Now, that was very time consuming. And so we kind of abandoned that approach. And now what we do is we find mentors, we vet them to make sure they have the right temperament, and we do a speed dating thing where the students pitch their business, the mentors talk about what they can do to help, what their skills are, and they each give us their top 3 people, and we go in the room and we match them. And most of the time it works out, not always. One of our biggest challenges has not been finding mentors, is getting our participants to hold up their end of the bargain in staying in touch with the mentors and taking the mentors' advice, scheduling follow-on meetings. We found that there was some type of intimidation factor, that no matter how often we said, hey, this is like your partner, somebody who's done it, before, who can help you, some people still felt that the mentors were there to check up on them. So we're continuing to fine tune that.
There's so much gold in that. One, I just love the iterative process you've gone through, and just the transparency of not getting it right the first time, and continuously learning. I like that speed dating. Here in Australia, we have a program called Mentor Blaze, a similar kind of thing where you kind of get through that rapid iteration.
Sounds a lot more sophisticated than speed dating.
Yeah. It's I love it. And that intimidation factor and kind of the behavioral change, because you can just put them together, but there's deeper things to address, but you're finding those out. That's really good. And the 4 categories: coach, counselor, consultant, and mentor. And one of the terms that often comes up is guide on the side versus sage on the stage.
Okay, I like that.
Guide on the side.
That's the second thing I'm going to have to use that you've told me to.
Use it and claim it. I want to touch base. Robert's asking, before the Eship Summit, you found your website, and he's got real joy to see a fully fledged ecosystem you're creating. How adaptable do you think Launch My City can be to COVID-19, especially with social distancing, emphasis on communication through virtual media like Zoom? How have you gone through that transition?
Well, we were very worried about that, because the shutdown came in March here, and we were 1 week away from graduating finishing the class in one cohort, and 1 week into another cohort. and neither of the facilitators were really strong with Zoom. And they took two different approaches. The one who was 1 week away from the last class said, you know what, we can finish this class later. Right now, let's take care of our people. So they did a Zoom check-in every week just to see how everybody was doing. And about 75% of the people showed up every week. About 6 weeks in, they said, okay, everybody's all right, let's have this last class and let's graduate you. The other one, who was 1 week in, originally, they said, well, why don't we just delay it and we'll start again in the fall? And we said, nah, because you'll lose all your momentum. So we hung in there, and the program manager arranged to have, this is in a small town of Wake Forest, so not a lot of land geography, but he arranged meals for pickup from local restaurants on the day of the class. So the class would go by and pick up a meal, go home, log in early, and eat their meal with everybody else. And the good news for that small business is they were previous graduates of Launch Wake Forest, or they were just local, independently owned businesses in town. And the class members would go there, they would pick up their free meal that's paid for by the program. But they would also say, I'm here, why don't I buy food for the rest of the family? So the small businesses really benefited. And it turned out that they really did bond around the technology. So we were very worried about that at first. But now we have 5 cohorts that are all virtual. And we had 2 who decided to do a social distance orientation. It was interesting. One of them had it outside in a pavilion. And another one had them in a big training room in town hall with everybody had their own individual 4-foot tables, 2 feet apart, and everybody wore a mask, and their table had everything on it they already needed, the food, the water, the handouts, everything. So I'm not sure that we will ever go back to the 100% face-to-face now that we know what we can do with technology. In fact, this year, we had 130 applications for Launch Raleigh. And oddly enough, only 30 of them interviewed, but they ended up being the best 30 because 27 of those people they thought were really good and needed some help. They should go someplace, but I won't let them take more than 20 in a class. It's too much work, not enough interaction for the participants. We had a town next door who also had a really good year, but they only seated 17 people because it's a much smaller town. So we were able to take 5 people from Raleigh and said, we're going to send you over there. It's just another Zoom link. You don't have to drive there, just another Zoom link. So we were able to serve more people that way. So we're hooked now. It'll probably be hybrid, where maybe we'll have a great face-to-face celebration and we'll do a lot of virtual stuff, and maybe we'll have a midpoint face-to-face, and maybe we'll have the big party graduation. But we know that we won't be going back to 100% virtual. And that also opens up some more opportunities for time of day. We've done everything in the evenings during the week so far. But now maybe it makes sense to have a early morning class or a Saturday morning class. We'll be exploring that.
Yeah, it's good. And kind of how that challenge has driven up some innovations even in your own business model. We only have a few questions left, and we're coming up on about 8 minutes to go. So I just want to get through these quickly. One of the ones I do want to touch on, because you mentioned, supporting people in Canada, and I'm sure, out of the 40 plus people that are listening, they're going to say, well, how do we take advantage of this? Do you how do you supporting people outside of, your region, outside of your country? What if people want to get into this? What's the options, and how do you be sustainable as you do that?
Yeah, I would love to be able to go. I send Matthew. He's retired. He's a Rotarian. He knows people everywhere. But we do a lot of telephone support because a lot of material is on the website, and we have conversations with people to talk about how they can adjust what's being done to their community. In each of our towns, the combination of partners is very different. In Raleigh, we have 2 HBCUs in the community that we're serving. So we have both of them as partners. We have the town, we have SCORE, we have a local community development organization. But in some of the other towns, the partners are different. So, everybody has a little bit of a different twist on it. So we help them figure out how to best adapt it to their communities.
Yep. Oh, that's good. That's good. And speaking of adapting to communities and understanding exactly what that impact is, Danny's raised a few and he's getting a few shout outs on plus ones for this question. How do you measure? You mentioned before just a few really quick metrics. Maybe if you can go over those again, what you currently
Okay.
measure, and maybe what's on your wish list of what you'd like to measure.
Okay. Well, my first thing that I wanted to measure was retention, because I have been raising money to pay for the training. Until this year, I've always raised grant money to pay for the training. And it's a whole different message when you go to a funder and say, hey, we're helping these people and we've got a 7% dropout rate, or we got a 93% retention rate, versus if you go and say, well, we got a 70% retention rate. I'm not sure I would give anybody money for 70%. So my first measurement was people have to stay in class, they have to finish. And that's what we've been able to measure most successfully. We've also been able to measure business starts. And sometimes it's not, and that's not a completely successful measurement, because sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is to talk them out of starting a business. That has happened as well. And sometimes a business that they come in thinking they're going to start, they don't. But we're still looking at that. We just started because earlier this year, we took $160,000 and allocated it across about 69 small businesses to help them like put their finger in the dike in the March, April timeframe. We just started going back doing some surveying to understand where they are from a revenue perspective. But right now, the big thing has been retention.
Yeah, and if you could have a data point that you would love to have, do you know what that is yet?
I would love to have revenue growth and business starts. We have some people who've started second businesses. What's interesting in this situation is once they come through the program and they graduate, I continue to provide ongoing training, but I don't provide counseling beyond, connecting with them with a mentor. I send them to our small business center for the counseling, for the ongoing stuff. In a way, I lose a little bit of track of that, but my small business center is capturing all of that detailed information. We can run reports with them.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got the 5-minute mark coming up here. We've got 2 questions left I want to touch on quick and then give you an opportunity to wrap up. The first one can be a bit of a 30-second response from Hadiza, who's asking about the digital literacy, digital skills training incorporated in the program. Do you have digital skills component integrated in your curriculum?
Originally, we were taking in people who maybe were not comfortable with email, were not comfortable with the Microsoft Word, Microsoft Office products. And what we've learned is they're not ready for this program. So we expect people to come in, they know which idea they're working on, or they already started a business. They have to be comfortable with some technology because the Kaufman Fast Track curriculum is online. So we learned the hard way in the first year that we were creating an extra burden for people by accepting them and them having that big technology, hill to climb while they're also trying to study and start this business. So one of the things that we'll do in the interview process, in the application, for anybody who applies who wants to interview, we'll sit down and talk to them. But we route them to other places and say, you're not ready yet, go do this and come back.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, it's part of that curation process up front.
That's right.
Sure you have the right candidates that'll get the most out of it. And one last question, maybe a bit of a 2-minute response here. Alex is asking about practical tips for establishing a sense of connection among a cohort. And I might also expand on that to say,
eating together?
Eating together is a good one. You touched on that. And also connecting your alumni. So you have all these people that had shared experience across multiple cities. Do you have something to connect all of them together?
What we have been doing in the past, while they're in the cohort, until this year, they shared a meal together. They showed up at a place at the teaching location at 5:30 for a meal, and class started at 6. And there were some really close connections created because after you've shared, 10 to a dozen meals with somebody, you know them. We also had them. We used a closed Facebook group as the discussion board for the class, and we encourage people to post their homework there, their non-confidential homework. Like, if you don't feel comfortable, don't put your financials there. But we encourage the students to comment about each other's homework. We did not allow until this fall the same types of business in a single cohort. So we wouldn't have two landscapers in the same cohort or two, massage therapists in the same cohort. So they weren't worried about, sitting next to their competitor and everybody in the class was potentially everybody else's customer. We've been keeping people together by providing continuing education, ongoing education. Some of the town groups still get together on a regular basis. We started last year having an annual reunion. We're in the process of planning the second annual. It got slowed down a little bit by COVID-19 and it'll probably have to be virtual. But last year we had a physical reunion. It was only about 3 hours. It was in the evening. And we got, about 40% of our participants, probably because of the drive. So we're looking forward to having more participation this year, but we're going to have to be really creative to keep people engaged virtually.
Yeah.
Oh, and we just started a Launch Wake County alumni closed Facebook group. And we're creating a searchable directory called the Launch Wake County Marketplace where, if I'm an event planner and I need a florist, I'll go into my marketplace and see if one of my fellow graduates can provide that.
Yeah, no, that's great, Katie. Thanks so much. We got about a minute left.
Okay.
What's the URL? What's the URL for the project again?
So launchmycity.org is where all the templates are.
Yeah.
And I take a look at that. If you need some help and want to talk about it, I'm happy to. Somebody asked how strong is our small business center, and I just want to address that. Very strong. We have the #1 small business center in the state, but North Carolina has 58 community colleges. Each one has a state-funded small business center. So we've got a big commitment from that, but they'll probably serve, and they served in the last fiscal year 600 individuals and over 2,400 seminar attendees. So pretty strong, and we plug in together like Legos because collaboration is the new capital.